Hello, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. So welcome to this session about the new document-based offering for AIM Sites Edge Delivery using standard Office tools like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. In this session, you will learn about how to use Word, Google, Excel, and the Office tools you actually used to from your day-to-day work to build out exceptional experiences for your users and also focusing on your offers. This session builds a little bit on top of the previous one for my colleague Hannes and will put the focus more on the content offering side and how the offers work with the new stack. About me, my name is Markus Haag. I work as a senior software engineer for Adobe AEM Sites based in EMEA within Adobe since 11 years now. So for the topics for today, I will start with an introduction and give you the basics about how the document-based offering works. And then we'll dig deeper into working with the documents. I will show you real-world project examples from our customer sites and how they're using the new system to optimize the experience for their users. For that, I will start with the document offering flow and show you actually how we come from the Word or Google document to the actual website. And then I will dig deeper and show you how the documents, the offers are working on a day-to-day basis, are structured and how they're organized. Let's get it starting. You already heard about the new features coming for AEM, where we use standard Office tools like Google and SharePoint to build exceptional experience for your end users, like we heard in the keynote, that you want to build super fast websites with our new delivery engine, but also exceptional experiences for your content creators to focus on the creativity, to focus on the actual content and use the tools they are used to and don't get interrupted or disturbed by the CMS tooling coming their way. So speaking about the tools. First, we use Word or Google Documents. This is basically the tool at your hand for all the structured and unstructured content. You can put there any kind of document-based, which is then mapped to a website. Simple examples like a blog post or a press release, but even more complex examples like building out a landing page out of a Word document for e-commerce, building out product detail pages with all the details you have there on a product detail page, etc. The second set of tools are workbooks and sheets. We use them for more structured content, like dynamically or manually generated lists of content, lists of pages, but also you can imagine, let's say you have a contact form where your users can contact your sales or your technical people, and they have a drop-down list. For each region, they can select the contact person, and these contact persons, including their contact details and maybe address or telephone number, can be managed easily in a sheet and then used dynamically on the page. We also use the sheets for technical or more technical elements of the new system, like we allow you to manage bulk metadata. We come to that in a detail later, or we use sheets to manage redirects, URLs, if you want to maintain extra URLs for SEO reasons, or if you want to keep your old URLs still in place, if there are some pages has been removed, but you don't want to remove the URL for SEO reasons, you can manage redirects in Sheet as well. And the third area of tools we are using for the new situation is the collaboration tools, where your authors can collaborate between each other, where the authors can collaborate with the developers. And we also have Slack bots for the new system, which help you interacting with the system, getting out RAM data, getting out statistics, analysis, how the site is performing, or also helping the authors uploading large files like videos or big chunks of PDF files to the content repository. So let's assume we want to work on our website using the new system. How does actually the workflow for the author look like? Let's assume we want to edit this page. It's actually a real page, a screenshot from a real page, because it's our landing page for the new AEM delivery. If we edit this page, we go to the Word document. How we do this? We do this using the sidebar as seen in the previous presentation. And from the sidebar, we can open the Word document, or in this case, it's a Google Sheet, Google document. We can edit this document, and once we are ready, maybe it's reviewed by our colleagues, we can click on Preview in the sidebar, and then this will open a new window with the preview URL. You will notice here that the URL is hlx.page, which is actually the preview subdomain you get for your projects. This is not public content, it's just available for your users to preview. How does it actually work? Once you click Preview, in the background, the system will connect to the content repository, Google Drive in this case, or SharePoint, get the document, which should be published and previewed, and puts this in our internal system, what's called the content bus, into the preview bucket, and from there it can be rendered into HTML. Once you are happy with the preview, in the sidekick, you can click Publish. And by clicking Publish, it takes exactly the same last previewed version of the document and puts this into a live bucket. So it's moved from the preview bucket into the live bucket. This will trigger also a CDN purge if configured to invalidate all the versions which might be cached. And with that, the page is live. In parallel, we'll also send this to an index. So the page can be indexed and is later available for using for queries or for adding it to the sitemap XML, for example. And with that, the new page is live and visible to your end users. So changing pages from Word document to a live website super easily in just a few seconds. Speaking about Word and document and about the documents, how do we actually organize the content? So let's go now and have a look at the repository where the content is stored and how it's organized. First rule of thumb is in the content repository, we at the moment support SharePoint and Google Drive repository. The URL structure follows the file structure, as simple as that, which means an index document is mapped to the home page. An about document is mapped to /about. You respect folders. So a document you place in the recipes folder, which is named risotto, is available via /recipes/risotto, and so on. All documents are transformed into web pages. Workbooks and sheets are transformed into JSON documents, which are available via a JSON API. Let's have a look how this looks for a real project. And for example, I will use our own page I just showed you before. This is the repository folder for the hlx.live site, the site you have seen before in the demo screenshots. And here we find a typical document. We have an index document. We have additional documents. We have documents organized in folders. We have a documents, developer, business, etc. folder. And in there are other documents. But you will also notice there are a few extra documents and sheets which have special meaning. First, there is a .hlx helix folder. This folder is not exposed to the public. It's typically used to store credentials and other sensitive information for the project and project configuration. Then we have, as mentioned earlier, a redirect sheets. Let's open this one to show you an example. The redirect sheets for this project and like for other projects, it looks pretty simple. It just has two columns. It has the source of the URL path and it has a destination. This can be either a path for an internal redirect or it can be a full URL if you want to do an external redirect. Another example for special purpose sheets is the query index. The query index is typically generated automatically by our indexer and indexes all published pages. Actually, it's up to the project. You can decide which documents you want to index. You can create a full index, you can create partial index, and you can also configure for your project which of the fields the document has, which metadata, which content elements you want to have indexed. And then it's available for query. It can be reused for the sitemap XML and so on. Let's go back to the sites. These are the special documents. If we look now at the document itself, now that we learned the documents are in SharePoint and we work with documents, how are they structured? How do they look like? So first, let me introduce to a few terms I will use during the presentation. These are sections, blocks, and default content. And these are the three main elements a content author has to work with. Don't be scared. There's nothing super special about them. It's just terms we use when we speak about the new delivery. When designing and working with the documents, there's one first element, and that's authors first. If you create your document structure, if you design your websites, always have the authors in mind as well, not just the end users, because they are working with these documents on a day-to-day basis. We use sections to group elements together on a page. A section is always on a page, so each document and each website has minimum one section, and within that section we can have default content elements like text, title, images, etc., and we can have blocks. We go to detail about blocks in a second, but the important thing about blocks is to make the life of the author as easy as possible. Be careful introducing new blocks. Only introduce new blocks when really needed. So let's have a look at a real document. And I show you this document here. This is the same like on the screenshot, and it looks like at the beginning like a pretty standard Word document. We have an image, which is then later used as the hero image. We have an H1, we have a subtitle, we have text. Here in this case, we have a block. Then we have an H2, more text, more images, and so on. And the semantics of the Word document is then used by the environment and by the platform to generate the websites out of it. So out of this document, the final website is looking like this one. And you will see here, it's the same elements. We have the image, which is used as a hero element. It's not the full image, so I'm guessing there are some style sheets applied here. Then we have the main H1, which is used on top of the hero element, and then we have the subheading text. Here is the block, and so on, and we have the page rendered out of the Word document. Any changes from the Word document, as I said, are directly reflected in the preview version when we preview the document. Now that we know a little bit more about the three main building elements of document, actually, how does it work? How do we come from the Word document or the Google document to the actual website? Let's look at the technical workflow, how this works. Actually, it's a two-step workflow we apply here. The first step is done by our rendering pipeline. This is provided by the Adobe Cloud, and it's the same for all projects. A section is mapped to a div top-level element directly as a child of the main. And this applies to each section. In this example, there's only one section, so we have only main, only one div as part of the child for the main element. Default content is just mapped one-to-one from the document structure and from keeping the semantics of the document to the HTML. So in heading 1 in Word or Google gets into a H1 tag, heading 2 into a H2 tag, and so on. Just free-form text gets mapped into a P, images are getting mapped into a picture tag. The only little special thing here is about blocks. Blocks are mapped into a div structure with some child elements, and the special part here is that blocks are annotated with the class name, and a class which is mapped to the block name. So a block which is called quote will have a class quote here in the DOM structure. This is happening for all Word documents, and we keep it pretty simple and really flat structure to render a semantically structured document out of all Word documents or Google documents. Once this is done, the second step happens. This is actually happening client-side via the Franklin library and the script share as code. This code takes care of mapping and annotating the document and markup we got from the first step into the final markup, which we call decorating, which is basically we use JavaScript to augment the DOM structure we got in the first step with wrapper elements to prepare the final DOM. Each section gets classes attached as well, like section to identify them as a section, and following classes depending on their metadata. Each default content area gets mapped into an own div as well with the class name default content wrapper. And each block gets mapped into a wrapper div as well, which is gets the class name of the block minus wrapper attached. So we have the same semantics and the same structure for all the blocks. Additionally, you can see we have some extra data attributes attached here. This is used by script shares and by our JavaScript library to make sure we load the corresponding JavaScript code for the sections and for the blocks and load the CSS code, CSS files if needed. So the status data attribute keeps sort of a loading state of each section and of in each block. At the beginning, it's just set to initially, and once it's loaded, it's finally set to loaded, so that the library knows which block code is already loaded and applied and executed, and which block code is not rendered yet. And once this is done, you basically have the final website visible to your end user. Since I spoke a lot about blocks now, let's look a little bit deeper how blocks are working as one of the main concepts. Again, keep it simple. Only introduce blocks for your offers if there's actually a need to introduce blocks. Sometimes it's maybe easier to keep the offers away from the complexity and just let them focus on the content. And the blocking can be done later, maybe even automatically. We come to this in a second. Second, if you have the requirement to introduce a block because there's a special semantic and a special meaning, try to keep the block as simple as possible and as easy to understand for your offers. Make sure by immediately spotting the document and the table structure in the document, they can already get an understanding what this block is used for and what the block does. Like my columns block screenshot here, an example, it's pretty simple to understand that this is rendering a 3-column layout later on the page. Or can imagine of a carousel block, which has 3 elements, which means the authors already know it will be a carousel, which has 3 content elements later, which the carousel is loading. Make sure that you have the content which is actually going to be rendered as part of the block, also inside the block. Don't put it somewhere next to you and then use JavaScript to put it in there or modify the DOM structure. Really make sure that the author is sort of getting a sense what he will get later. To make the life easier for the authors, we have a so-called block library. So the authors typically don't need to write these table structures manually or using Word table tools. We have a block library which can be used to get these blocks into the Word document. And let me quickly show this to you. So I'm now an author, again, of the same document. And let's say I want to introduce a new block here. For example, let's put me the cursor here, make some space. The block library is available for all the projects you start, and you can integrate this into the block. And this gives a nice and handy overview about all the available blocks I have here as part of my project. And let's maybe preview a few of them to see what they're actually doing. So I can pick the block and I can get a preview in an extra tab. This will give me an impression, okay, this is how the teaser block is supposed to look like. It seems to have an image and some call to action button in the text. That's nice. Let's use this on the page. So to do this, I'm going back to my block library, selecting the teaser. At the moment, the teaser has only one variation. That's why I have only one option. If the teaser has multiple block variations, then there will be multiple options here as well I can choose from. So I can copy this element. I can paste it into the document. I'm not going to change the teaser content for now. I'm just taking the example here. And once I'm happy with the result, I'm going to publish and preview my page. And here we have it. The newly added teaser is right on the page with the demo and sample content. I already mentioned a little bit. There's a few extra things which should be aware related to blocks. First is blocks can have so-called options. Block options actually go here into brackets as part of the block naming. And they are made for giving the author the option to have different variations of a block used on a page. The developer can then use this information to either run extra JavaScript code or apply different styles based on the information of the block options. Introducing block options is a nice example where you can have one block which is just available in slightly different variations, like the column example here, which is a normal variation and seems to have sort of a wide layout variation. So for these use cases, it doesn't make sense to introduce a second block. With block options, you can make it easier for the author to only work with a handful and a small number of blocks, which is easily to remember. And you don't need to know about extra blocks, so you don't need to introduce a new block just for tiny little variations. Also important to mention here, this is important later, blocks actually cannot be nested. We keep the structure flat and semantically organized. So you cannot put a block into another block, but we have other solutions when you want to work with nested content and have stuff inside a block, which is more dynamically, we can achieve this as well. As I said before, we want to make the life of the author as easy as possible. And to achieve this, think about what would be the best case if you want to introduce a block and you need the block, but actually there is no block in the document. For this functionality, we have the so-called auto-blocking. So the authors can focus on the content creation and just write content in the Word document. They don't need to worry about, hey, this must be in a blog. What is the blog name? How do I find out how this blog is working? They just can focus on the content creation. And auto-blocking kicks in and takes care of mapping content structures, detect them automatically, and map them into a block. Once this happens, the code there is like a normal block code, and they behave similar like a block would be on the table, on the document itself. Good use cases examples are, for example, hero blocks. It's adding sidebars, or in a social media blog, for example, adding author information, etc. Stuff which is repeating all over the place, which the author actually should not take care that much and not spend so much time. Another example is if you want to have, for example, multiple text-based pages where you want to organize the content of a page on a tab. You can do this in section in a Word document or Google document, and then automatically use auto-blocking to rearrange the content areas in a tab structure. Let me show you an example from the Adobe blog. This is a blog post of the Adobe blog, which is available at blog.adobe.com. And here you see we have a title, then we have some author information, who wrote this blog post, the publishing date, and some social media links as well. And then underneath, there's the image and the actually blog post content. If we check out the Word document for this blog post, you will see that we have here the header and the image, but there's no author information. There's no publish date. So where does it come from and how does it work? If you scroll down to the metadata table, which is a special table and a special block I come to in a second, you'll find actually here's the author information and here's also the publishing date. So this information is stored in metadata of the website, but using auto-blocking, we can make sure it's loaded and rendered on any place of the website where we want it to appear. So in this case, it's injected between the headline and the hero image automatically using auto-blocking. Another example, as I said, is the hero. And let's take this as a second one. So this is a screenshot of a page which has a hero block. Very simple block. It's only one cell which contains the image and the H1 of the final website. Does it work? Yes, absolutely. Can we use this? Absolutely. But we can make it easier. We can make it like this. So it's a very simple change. It's just getting rid of the block. And we can use auto-blocking to ultimately detect the hero image, detect the H1 headline, and automatically put this back into the hero block. So the author doesn't need to care about adding a block, adding a table. It's just a simple one, but imagine you work day to day with the content structures and the multiple websites, multiple pages. It's even a simple thing and a simple step which you can avoid. The result of both examples will be the same. The website will look the same. On the one sample, it's very specific. The block is there. The author can see it. On the other side, we use auto-blocking, make the life easier. The result will be the same. I already showed you the metadata table. Actually, there are two blocks which are a little bit special, which is first is the metadata block and the second is section metadata. Let me show that to you. And for this one, I will again use another example of our customers. So this site, if you scroll up, there is a landing page of our customer. It has an image. It has first an area with a white background and some content on it. Then it has a dark blue area with some content on it. And then again, it has a white area with some background image and content. And this is managed via section metadata and page metadata. So how does it look like? First, let's scroll up again. This is the image of the page. Then we have the area with the white area. So we introduce a new section, which is visible by adding this horizontal line here. Then we have the columns block and the new one. No metadata. Why? Because it's a white background. It's just the content. Seems to be white background. No extra information is the default section style we have in this project. So we don't need a metadata table. If you scroll down a little bit, the next content section starts, and here we have a section metadata. The section metadata is used to provide extra detailed information like style attributes, etc. for this section only. So this metadata applies to all the content elements which are between this horizontal line and the next horizontal line. So this gives this section a style which is called highlight dark purple. And if we scroll down a little bit, we have another content area in a new section, again, the section metadata. In this case, we have a background, and I'm not sure if this is visible, but this is the same background image like on the website. This works the same like the section before. It's just adding the background image. It's not any extra style because we're using the white color and the white background as a default one as well. This is for section metadata. And if you scroll down in the same document and use this as an example, we have page metadata. Page metadata is in a block called metadata. We usually recommend to put this at the end of the document. It can technically be anywhere, but it's good best practice to put this at the end of the document. And here in this metadata block, the behavior is slightly different because this is not rendered as an actual block. So there's no JavaScript and CSS for the metadata blocks. It's actually used to generate the HTML head meta text. So the title element is used here to have set a specific title tag for this document. By default, if not present, we will detect and use the first headline of the document. But if you want to have the first headline different than the title, which is also used for SEO optimizations, you can set the title of the element. Same like you can do here for description. There could also be keywords and other standard text can be used. An image can be put here as well. Images are translated to open graph image. So if you share this document with social media, you get a nice image preview as well. Additionally, you can introduce custom text as well. So if you add here any other meta attribute, it takes the first column here as the tag name and the second column as a tag value. Custom meta text works nicely as well. This is about metadata, which is on the page, but actually there's more. You can have metadata which is shared across multiple pages. Assume you want to set up some metadata flags into each and every page. Quite a lot of work if you have a large site and you don't want to do this manually. For this one, we have a metadata sheet. Let me show you one example from our own hlx.live website. There's a metadata sheet here as well. And this meta sheet basically works based on the path of the website. You can set as many meta fields as you want for each and every URL you specify. In this case, for example, for every page which is in /tools/something, we set a special template. For everything which is underneath index in the main root, we set index no follow in the robots.txt, in the robots text. Sorry. This works together with the metadata on the page itself. This is applied first. And if there is the same field, like let's say there might be template on the page itself, then the content and the attribute which is on the page itself will always win. So you can have global fields for all the pages in a certain area of the site, and you can still have individual pages overwriting these metadata for special purposes. Next, let me introduce to some more content elements and concepts we use for the new delivery. Something you might have seen in the metadata already, but I didn't mention it yet. These are templates and themes. Templates and themes are two fields for the metadata block, which are a little bit special. actually, I told you the metadata block is rendered into the HTML head as meta tags. These two actually don't apply. These two elements are added as and transferred into body classes of the body tag automatically. So every value you put for theme or for template is added to the body class list. Why are we doing this? We introduced this to allow you a little bit more fine-grained control about the layouting and theming and structuring of the page. The two elements are actually working very similar, but they're meant to be used for different areas of your website and for different purposes. The theme is mainly theme field is mainly used to introduce you with styling elements. So you can use this to apply special CSS classes based on a theme if you want to change some coloring or some background and so on. The template field is used to be if you want to have documents working with a different semantic, working with a different structure. One example might be, for example, on your website, you have blog posts. A blog post might have a sidebar column at the left or the right side, where you put extra offer information, social media links, or extra tagging, etc. This is a good example where you can use a template because it's basically altering or give extra information about document structure and how the document should be rendered. Both of these actually work very nicely together with the auto blocking. For example, let's take the hero we had in the previous example. If you have a common hero image with a background, with a H1 rendered above the image, for example, but you have a blog post where you want to maybe have a different hero styling, maybe a smaller image, maybe bigger image, maybe extra information like author or reading time as part of the hero, then you can use auto blocking in combination with template or with theme to nicely achieve this without extra work and without much extra coding. The last element I want to introduce you is very powerful. It's called fragments. What are fragments? Fragments are actually shared content which is shared across multiple sites. You typically put the fragments at a central location and then use this and embed these in multiple sites, multiple pages across your website. The nice part about the new platform is, from the author perspective, you actually don't care because every document can be a page or it can be a fragment. The author sometimes the author doesn't even know if this is a fragment or if this is rendered as a page. Usually they know because they work a lot of the sites, but sometimes they don't. And it doesn't matter because every URL is available with an extra selector, which is making the page rendering as a fragment. There are two ways to embed fragments inside a page. One is you could use a dedicated block for it. In this example, in the left screenshot here, it's a simple block just called fragment because that's what it does. It gets the only information the fragment block gets is the link to the final fragment. And the block takes care of embedding the fragment, replacing the link from the markup and replacing it with the actual content of the fragment. Another nice way, again, is auto blocking and embedding automatically fragments. With this, you have the option that you can place the fragment link all over the place. It can be just in the default content. It can be inside any other block, and you automatically detect these URLs and replace the fragment URLs with the actual fragment content. Let me show this you again on the live website. Taking our customer website again, as you can see here, we have an area where we have two column layout where we have with a hero, a text, and here we have a tiny carousel. In this case, the carousel is actually embedded via a fragment. So let me show this to you. If you scroll up to the content structure, you will see here, there's our column. The column has the headline and the text and a link, the same link I had on the screenshot. And if I copy this link and open the link directly, you can guess what you see. It's the carousel content. And this is the same carousel content which is on the main website and on the homepage. But it's not used like this because it's rendering a header and a footer. The trick here is for each and every URL, remember, every document can be a fragment. I can add a selector, plain.html, and with this one, I just get the raw content of this fragment. for the normal browser, if I preview it here, not very usable. That's why for preview purposes, if the author is working with the fragment, actually this view is way nicer. But this view, without the header and the footer, without extra styling loaded, this is the raw content of this fragment, which is then used on the main homepage here and rendered and embedded in this carousel. Another example is on the Adobe blog. The blog post page I showed you before, it's the same. And here we have an area with some extra teaser content. And this content is used on, you will find this on many blog post pages on the Adobe blog. It's always the same content. So it doesn't make sense to maintain this on each and every page and copy and paste it. So we're using a fragment here as well. How does it look? In this case, we are using a special fragment block, which is called banner. And like you've seen before on the screenshot, it just gets the URL of the actually content which should be rendered as part of that fragment. And if you preview this, it looks like this. It's again the raw content without the header and the footer, just the image and the text you want to render and embed in the page. And this fragment can then be used on multiple pages to finally being styled and getting the experience we have here on this page. And with this, I introduced you to all of the main concepts we have for the authors. So let's try this out. What are actually the steps to go from content, from your document to a website? So assuming you start on a project, the project is already set up, and you come there as an author and you want to create a new blog post. So what the typical workflow would look like, you go to a draft folder and create a new document. You edit the document, use the blog library, if you like, to add stuff. Then you discuss and collaborate with your co-workers and review the content. You can use standard office tools. You can use Power Automate workflows in SharePoint, for example, to trigger workflows, etc. Once you're happy with the content, it can be previewed and can be published. But wait, what happens if you introduce a new blog or you make changes on an existing blog because you want to introduce a new option because the blog post requires some new styling? Do we need a developer for this? Maybe. If we need a developer, the nice thing about the new platform is the developer can actually work in parallel. You can take the preview content with the new blog code you introduce. The author can still concentrate on the content, and the developer in parallel can work and implement the JavaScript and CSS as needed for the new blog. Nothing will break on the live website because it's still in the preview state, and the code for the developer is still not merged to the main branch. Once the developer is ready, we can send a preview link to the author as well, and the author can see the combination of the new introduced block and the new introduced content structures together with the new code developed by the developer. And once they are happy with the result, the developer can merge the branch into the main, the author can publish, and the website can be made ready for the end users. As simple as that. And with that, I'm coming to the end for this presentation about the authors. As seen before, there's many new stuff coming for AAM sites and for AAM delivery. If you are interested to work with us together, the best is to reach out to your Adobe representative and joining the AAM VIP program today. If you have any questions, this is now the time to come up. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Marcus. That was fantastic. So go ahead and stay back on that slide that you were just on, the last Q&A slide. There you go. Awesome. So just stay here for a second.
Yep.
So one of the questions, I mean, there's a bunch of questions. Thank you to the moderators who answered all the questions that we had in chat so far. I'm going to bring in a couple. One of them is, how can we author the images from AEM DAM? If you could address that for a second.
Yes, we have an integration with AEM DAM. The way this works is we're providing you an asset picker. You can pick the assets from AEM DAM, similar like the block library picker you have seen before. They got then embedded into the Word or Google documents and delivered by the new platform. So this is working as well.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, a couple more questions. So can your fragment point to an alternative branch than the one you're previewing the page?
I'm not sure if I understand correctly. So this is about previewing a different version of the page?
Yeah, I believe so. I think Hannes is on moderation. If he can
Yeah.
mention that, or Florian, one of you guys.
Yeah. So I try to answer that. I'm not sure if it's 100% correct. So the author gets always one preview of the page. If you change the document and re-preview, it's altering or it's replacing the previous preview. So there's one preview version for the author of the content, and there's one live version. For the developer, it's slightly different because the developer can work with branches. So for code preview, they are based on each and every branch you put in the content repository. And for that, you can have as many branches as you want to preview different versions of the code developers working on, or multiple developers are working in parallel. But for the content authoring, we typically work with two stages, the preview version and the live version. Technically, it's even we have three versions because you always have the draft document in Word or in Google, and which you can edit and already see what's there in the document without previewing.
Okay, that was great. Thanks, Marcus. So is there a separate document for mobile? How does that work?
No, we keep this structure as simple as possible. As I said, for us, its focus is on keeping a clean, semantically HTML structured, and it's up to the project and it's up to the developers to make sure there's one version of document works with mobile and with desktop. We have seen many projects and they have no problems with it. It works pretty nicely. You build your responsive layout. With the boilerplate you get from Adobe as the project starter, this is already done for the basic document structures. It's already done for the major queries for mobile, for tablet, and for desktop as a preview, and you can go from there. But it's super easy to build a fully responsive website, which only requires you to have one content structure, one document for mobile and desktop.
Okay. So can cache headers be adjusted?
Yes, actually, there's one metadata and one extra sheet, which I didn't really show you. There's a headers X sheet as well, and in the header sheet, you can influence the HTTP headers as well, existing headers, or you can also add custom headers if needed.
Okay, that's great. Hey, what is the observed SLA for this solution? Have there been any customers with unexpected outages?
I'm not aware of any outages. So the good thing is with the delivery architecture we provide, it's actually decoupled. The content repository on SharePoint or Google is decoupled from the delivery, and then we also have the CDN, if you have seen previous presentation. I'm not aware of any outages at all. We have super high uptime, and even if there are issues with Google or SharePoint, and we had this before, okay, the offers will be blocked. They maybe cannot update the content, but the website is not down because there's no live dependency on actually SharePoint or Google. So if there are any issues with SharePoint or Google, nothing will happen to the website. It will be up live and running without any issues.
All right. Okay. So we just have like a minute left. Let's throw one last one out there. So what license do you need to benefit from what you're showing here with composable services?
This new delivery stack can be used by all customers which have an AEM cloud service license.
All right. Very, very cool. Well, thank you very much, Marcus, for the presentation, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Again, if you had any questions that weren't answered, definitely jump on over to Experience League on that link, that QR code. Check out the resources that are listed here on the slide, and have an awesome day, and get ready for the next session that's coming up here in about 30 seconds. Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you.